Hi guys, it's Kurt Provost here, your guide to all things new skin. As you're out there building your new skin business, I think it's super important to be aware of the forces of influence. Because influence is such a rare thing. However, it is something that is applied to us on a daily basis. So it's rare in individuals who truly understand how to be influential. In that sense, it's rare. In the other sense, it's not rare at all because every single day we're being influenced by advertising, by social media, by politicians, by businesses, by friends, by family, by lovers. Everyone and everything has an influential impact on us. And the thing that gives this influence such power, such potency in our life, is that largely it's unconscious. Largely, we're not even aware that we're being influenced in one direction or another. So I'll get to the point in a moment. I'll explain what I'm talking about here. But I think first and foremost, if you're going to go out there and build your new skin business, it's really useful to be aware of a few different principles of things that influence human beings, primarily ourselves. So first and foremost, you can be aware of how you are being influenced and whether it's for a positive force or a negative force. And secondly, you can choose to use those techniques so that the things that you're attempting to communicate have a better chance of actually landing inside the other person's mind. Because we're so distracted these days, it's difficult to cut through the clutter and be heard. So I hope that these principles that I'm about to share help you with that. I got them from a fantastic book that is called Influence by Robert Cialdini. Now this book is not new, it's been around for decades now, and still out of all the books on influence, on psychology, on human nature, on how we think and make decisions and act, this is one of the best ones. So I'm going to cover 6 different points or concepts from this book and apply them to our new skin business and how you can use them for your advantage and for the advantage of those people around you. The first influential idea is reciprocity. Now I can hear some of you going, Kurt, yep, I'm aware of reciprocity, I understand it, I know what it is. Not that influential, because of course reciprocity is where I do something for you, there's an expectation that you do something for me. I scratch your back, you scratch mine. Yeah, not a big deal, we're all aware of that, it can't be that influential. But that's just the thing, it is. And it's probably even more influential because everyone's aware of it and they think that it doesn't impact them. It works on a subconscious level. So our awareness isn't even there on how that is influencing us and our actions. And why is that? Why is it so deep? Well, consider how we evolved. We evolved in tight-knit communities, very small communities, and the survival depended on that community thriving. And so what is good for the community was good for the individual ultimately in that time. And so people would be reciprocal. They would do one thing for another person and there would be an expectation that that favor would be returned. If someone wasn't reciprocal, they got bred out. They got pushed out of the community and they didn't pass on their genetic material. So we have it hardwired within us to reciprocate when someone does something beneficial for us. This is so deeply entrenched within the human psyche that Ethiopia, this happened decades ago, but Ethiopia, when it was at the height of a number of droughts that had happened, there was a famine within the country, millions were dying of starvation, it was receiving a lot of aid from international community. At that time, they donated aid money to Mexico. And no one could figure it out. They're like, what the hell? What's the connection between Ethiopia and Mexico? And this point when Ethiopia needed so much help, they were giving help to another country because of some natural disaster or something that happened. It was a time of need for Mexico. Well, it turns out that in World War II, when Ethiopia was invaded by Italy, Mexico actually helped them. And Ethiopia has never forgotten that. That is the power of reciprocity right there. Ethiopia had built into their psyche that, you know what, we need to return the favor no matter how dire our circumstances are. If Mexico ever needs our help, we will be there. That's an incredible thing. That's how powerful it is. And that was decades after the end of World War II. So there's no time limit on reciprocity. As long as people remember that they have been the beneficiaries of a good deed. So how is this relevant for you? How does this relate to Nu Skin? Well, there's two lines that I'd like you to write down and remember because they will come in handy. Quite often we do good things for other people, and I'm not talking about here going out and just trying to do things for other people so that then they feel obliged to do something beneficial for you, and that will be showing them your business or selling them your product or something like that. I'm not talking about that. Don't be an asshole when you use these principles, but be aware of them. So constantly we're doing good things for people, but so often what happens is someone will say, thank you so much for that, I really appreciate your help, and we're like, oh, don't worry about it, no worries, it's all fine, it was nothing, and we just kind of brush it off. So it's either that one where we're saying it was nothing, or it's the other end of the spectrum where you're being kind of rude and obnoxious and like a bull in a china store, and you're saying, yeah buddy, you owe me, don't forget that, I'll remember it and I'll continue to remind you, you owe me. And neither of those are a good idea. There is a beautiful, elegant middle ground where you can bring this principle of reciprocity into action in your day-to-day life. And that is by saying, when someone thanks you for something good that you've done for them, you can say this, no worries, I'm sure you would have done the same for me. That is such a powerful little line there where you just say, I'm sure you would have done the same for me too. And it just reminds me, look, I did that for you and I'm aware that it's a good thing I did for you, but I know and I have faith that you would have done the same thing for me and that you will in the future do something for me. So it will even out. You're just saying, don't worry about it. The grand scorecard will even out eventually. And they will remember that. And they'll be like, yeah, of course. And it's all on a subconscious level. Now, one that directly applies to Nu Skin is when you are asking for something of someone. So you're asking them to take a look at the business, to take a look at the product, to check out a link, a video, a presentation, whatever. It's a great invitation. The closing line of the invitation that I like to use, I got this from Eric Worre, is if I, would you? And this engages that principle of reciprocity. So if I sent you the link that shows you the presentation, would you check it out? So instead of just saying, hey, would you please check out this video, or would you please check out this presentation, where you're kind of like begging and you're coming from a powerless position, when you say, if I do something, will you do something in exchange? It's reciprocal and you are even instead of like this. It really changes the game and you get way better responses from people because of that. There's mutual respect built into it. So just play around with those words and start to use them on a daily basis, and you will find results within your life and results within your Nu Skin business increase thanks to this principle of reciprocity. The next one is an absolute killer for our business. It is the concept of scarcity. So that is the idea of a limited supply of something. So this is super important for human beings. It raises the value of whatever it is that is scarce, because it engages a number of different influential factors. Number one is social proof. It shows that, oh my God, other people want this, obviously, otherwise it wouldn't be scarce. It's a limited supply, so there's only so much of it that you can ever have. And there's also a sense of urgency there, because if you don't make a decision right now, if you don't act on this rapidly, then you might miss out. So it's engaging that fear of loss, and human beings react much more to a fear of loss than the optimism or hope of a gain. So we're more pessimistic as a whole. We tend to respond more to the negative side of things than to the positive side of things. So how does scarcity work? Well, they ran a bunch of different experiments. My favorite is the cookie experiment. So they had 2 different jars of cookies, the same cookies. That's the kicker there, and they had a control. And in one jar, it was full of cookies. And so they would get people to go and try a cookie from that jar and taste test it, tell them how good the flavor was, all these different aspects, and how likely they would be to purchase that, and how many they would purchase, and all these different questions. And then there was another jar that only had 2 cookies left in it. And time again, the jar that had the least amount of cookies in it, just the 2 in there, was rated as tasting better, as being more desirable. They would pay more money for it, and they would buy more of them. And The catch is they were identical cookies. So it messes with our perception big time, that sense of scarcity. So they went on further and they thought, well, how far can we apply this sense of scarcity? So they changed the experiment and they had just one jar of cookies and it was full, but they would come in and say, look, you can only have 2 of those cookies because the demand is so high on this, we don't have enough to go around for all the participants of this experiment. And then they would get them to rate that cookie. And again, the ratings would be through the roof there compared to the control that could just have as many as they want. And also they would pay more money and they would buy more of them. So scarcity is super, super powerful. They ran another experiment with a meat business that was wholesaling from Australia to the US. And they wanted to see how the principle of scarcity would impact the sales of this product. And so they had the group of salespeople make their normal sales calls where they would just say, this is what we've got, this is how much it is, how much do you want to buy? And then the second group, they got them to make that same sales call. However, they added a little bit of information that was like a drop of scarcity into the equation. And that was, they said, well, we thought we should let you know that there's some bad weather predicted coming up and it may impact the availability of this product in the future. Just thought we should let you know. And what happened as a result of that? They doubled their sales. The exact same product, the exact same calls, the words that they used, except that little piece of information, scarcity, and it doubled the sales. So they wanted to push it a little bit further and see if they could apply another principle of influence, which I'll cover next, and that is the principle of authority. And so they did the same sales call, except they let them know the source of that bad weather information. So it was from the Bureau of Meteorology and some PhD or whatever that they name dropped in there. So there was this really credible source. It gave that information that they were sharing authenticity, credibility. And what happened to the sales? They sold 6 times the amount of meat as they did from the first sales call. So that just shows you how ingrained these principles are and how useful they can be for your business. So how to apply the principle of scarcity to your business? Well, it's already being applied in many cases depending on where you are in the world, but Nu Skin applies this with how they launch a product, because when a new product comes, they give a product preview a few months before the actual product launch, and this creates a lot of scarcity around it because it's a limited time offering. There's not a lot of stock available, and usually they will sell out. In fact, when you sell out of a product, rejoice. That's one of the best stories that you can have because it creates a lot of scarcity around the product. And you say, look, last time we launched this, we totally sold out in 10 minutes, in an hour, in one day, in a week, we sold out completely. So you better get onto this now. And that principle works in your favor as long as you're aware of it and you're not sitting there complaining that, oh, we sold out. Well, it's good for the future if you sold out when you launch a new product. That's a fantastic thing, and it's a really compelling story to help people move to positive action rather than sitting there procrastinating and delaying the decision-making process. The third one I've already touched on in the meat example when they combine scarcity with authority. So authority is super powerful. In that example, it made the results 6 times what it would normally be. That's just how powerful it is. So you know what? There's many different authority figures out there in society, and society is deemed that certain professions, certain people are worthy of authority because of what they've been through to get to that position, that we're more likely to listen to them. So if someone's gone through medical school, gone through law school, we know that they have sacrificed a lot, that they've put in a lot of time and effort and been single-minded in their focus and their life to get to a level of proficiency or competency, at least we hope. And so their degrees mean something. When we're sitting in the waiting room, we're looking at the wall that has all their degrees on it. And that's building that sense of credibility, that sense of, oh, this is an authority figure that I can listen to and I can believe and trust. And so some people in society are more powerful in what they could say the exact same thing as you, but because they're an authority figure, it will be received in a much better light, or it will move people to action when maybe your words may not. So if you are an authority figure, well, that's an advantage for you in some ways. However, with Nu Skin, it could be a disadvantage as well, because with Nu Skin and network marketing in general, you want something where anyone can do it. So if people perceive, this is where the principle of influence may work against you. If you're a beauty therapist, let's just say, you have more authority on the topic of skincare than I do. However, if people believe that they have to be a beauty therapist in order to do Nu Skin, then that's probably going to work against you. So that is why we utilize third-party tools. So a video, that's where, even if it's you on the video talking, it's still useful because someone else can use that, build the same business that you have. They don't have to be you, but they can leverage the authority that perhaps you may have. And if you don't have authority, you can leverage other people's authority. So with Nu Skin, we have a ton of different authority figures depending on what field you want to point to. That's why within the PowerPoint presentations, within the business presentations, we point to the fact that we're on the New York Stock Exchange, because New York Stock Exchange is an authority figure. It gives credibility to Nu Skin business. Also the fact that we have a 5A1 Dun & Bradstreet rating. That is solid credibility right there, because that's a company that ranks it's a very famous company within the financial world that ranks different companies and gives them a rating of how likely they are to stay around in the future. And Nu Skin's got the top rating. That's super important. We've got scientists, so many different scientists that you can point to for credibility. So all around us are these authority figures that we can leverage their credibility that they bring with them to this business. And we can do the same thing on social media. You can actually fine-tune your presence on social media. You can pick the pictures where perhaps you're giving a presentation and there's an audience listening to you. Maybe you're at a party and you're telling a joke and there's a photo of you there and everyone's laughing and having a great time and you're the center of attention. You can have those photos as like a featured photo section of your profile. So when people visit your profile, subconsciously they're seeing, all right, this is a person who other people are listening to, so I will listen to them too. Which leads us into the fourth principle of influence, and that is social proof, or the idea of it's kind of like peer pressure. Ultimately, it's like we look to what everyone else around us is doing to gauge what we should be doing in these situations, particularly in situations that are unusual or a little bit out of the norm. For example, there is the waiting room experiment. I'm sure you've seen this, but for those who haven't, they set up this fake waiting room for an eye test, I believe, and this woman comes in who doesn't know it's a fake room. There's all actors sitting in the waiting room, and she books in for this eye test and sits down and joins the queue and is waiting silently, and this buzzer goes off, and everyone in the waiting room stands up. They don't say a thing, they don't look at each other, they just stand up and then sit back down. And the new girl's sitting there going, whoa, that's kind of weird. You can see it just ticking away in her head, just like, what the hell is going on here? That happens a couple more times, and by the third or the fourth time, she stands up with them when the buzzer goes off again. And every time the buzzer goes off, they all stand up, and she's part of the group, and just this up and down. Well, what happens is eventually they remove everyone from that group who was the actor, and they have her by herself, and they want to see if she still stands up and responds to the buzzer, and sure enough, she still stands up when it buzzes. And you think, that is crazy, that's insane, who would go along with that? She doesn't even know why she's doing it, and yet she keeps doing it. And then they bring in new people who are off the street, they don't know anything about this, and they're looking at her strangely because she keeps standing up, and then they join in. And someone asked, they go, what are you doing? And she said, oh, I don't know, everyone else was doing it when I came in. He joins in as well. This is insanity, but it's so powerful. It's such a useful demonstration of how we are pack animals ultimately. We are the same Homo sapiens from tens of thousands of years ago. We still have the same brain, same body, same genetics, and these forces are overwhelmingly strong. And if you're unaware of them, they're even stronger. Because you need to be aware of these forces in order to do something about them, in order to resist that, because you are susceptible to manipulation on a massive scale. And traditionally this has happened by governments, it's happened for all sorts of negative reasons, and the population has just gone along with things. I mean, some people could argue it is happening today with how certain countries are handling the situation that we have ourselves in. So it's something that I think is so important to be aware of, because this principle right here, social proof, is potentially the most dangerous if you're not aware of it. So if you forget everything else from this video today, remember this part. If you are in trouble in a public place, don't yell for help. Delegate instead. And let me explain that a little bit. The reason being is that within this book they give an example. It's a tragic example of a woman who was walking home one night in New York and she gets attacked. But there's a bunch of apartments nearby and the lights turn on when they hear her scream, and the attacker gets spooked by that and retreats. But no one does anything, nothing happens. So the attacker comes back and he finishes off what he started, and he murders this woman. And what's crazy about that is that they had 27 witnesses of that happening. And it wasn't just like happened in 5 minutes and then it was gone. This happened over the course of an hour in the evening. But no one called the police. I know. That was my response. I was like, what the hell? What sort of Nazi demonic people are these? But they're not. They're just ordinary, normal people who are just like you and I, and who responded likely how we would probably respond in that situation. Because what happens is we seek guidance from those around us when in stressful or unusual situations. So people hear a scream, they turn on their lights, they look out, they can't really see what's happening, or maybe they can see what's happening, and then they look across and say, oh, Bob, my neighbor, has got their lights on as well, and so does Mary. Someone else will have already called the police. You know, I'm not going to clog up their phone lines making a call that they've already got. So they kind of pass on or delegate the responsibility to someone else. And in this instance, 27 people did exactly that. They just kept thinking, all right, I'm going to pass the buck. Someone else will handle this problem. And that is why it's dangerous to yell for help in a public place when there's lots of people around. What's much better? Number one, you could yell fire because that affects everyone, so people are more likely to pay attention. But when you're yelling for help, it just affects you. And you can look at that situation and go, oh, that person needs help, but I'm not the best person. That person over there who looks like a nurse or a doctor, and that person over there is closer, they'll be better to help them. And you can pass on your way guilt-free because you know, or you trick yourself into thinking and believing that they are taken care of. However, it doesn't always work out like that. Sometimes you lose a lot of time until a good Samaritan comes along and helps. And so the best thing that you can do, this is the thing I want you to really focus on and remember, is that if you find yourself in a difficult situation, you're having a heart attack, whatever it is, look to the crowd around you and pick out individual people and delegate tasks to them. So you there in the purple jumper, call the police. You there in the red pants, come and help me. Like whatever it is, just make sure people will own that moment because they're like, oh, me, okay, I can do something. It's on me. And they will shine in ways that you wouldn't believe. But if you're just appealing to the generosity of crowds, it doesn't exist. And there's a great book on this called The Madness of Crowds by Douglas Murray. I highly recommend you read it. It is absolutely brilliant and terrifying at the same time because we think differently when we're in this herd mentality. So the concept of social proof works within our business in a few different ways. When you are doing a presentation, maybe you're doing an in-home party or something like that, you're doing a demonstration for a group of people, it's super important because most times you will have one person who has all the authority and who controls that social proof more than you do. So you have to kind of win them over to your side, ultimately. And there's a great story of a New Zealand team elite who did this. It was her first presentation, she knew nothing, and although she's a lawyer who was doing this business, that credibility didn't really transfer over when she's talking about beauty products because quite often credibility remains in one discipline only. It doesn't transfer into all things. So there was one woman who was very strong, very confident. She was conducting the flow of this meeting, and the team elite, well, she's now a team elite, she decided, you know what, I need to shut this woman up because she's derailing it completely. So she chose her to be the model and to put the facelift on. If you've ever had the facelift powder put on you, it sets like cement, you can't talk. And so she put double the amount on, not knowing what to do, and shut this lady up and put her down and just let her lay there while she talked to the other people. Well, what happened is that woman got an amazing result. She came out, her face was like a stroke, one side completely lifted, and she convinced all the other people at that event, and she was there telling, you need to get this, you need to get that, I'm going to get this. And that's what happens when you win over the person who has the social proof, who has the influence in that situation, then everything becomes effortless after that. And she walked away with her first $1,000+ sale, and this is many, many years ago. So it's a huge deal when you're in that environment. Pick out the one who is perhaps the most enthusiastic, perhaps you could deal with the most skeptical, but they're usually the hardest, or the most opinionated. And you can really bring them over to your side, and that will create a lot of social proof. Other things that you can do to create social proof is around what I just spoke about with authority. Design your world so that you have social proof. So you're sharing testimonials so that people can see, wow, a lot of people are using this product or they're doing this business, and it helps to build that sense of third-party validation. There are amazing business tools that you can use, like a 3-way call with your sponsor and your upline, business presentations, also groups, Facebook groups are amazing for third-party validation. Really make sure you're using this principle within your business because it is so powerful. All right, so the last two are contrast and likability. Contrast is this idea that as human beings, we naturally compare whatever we're seeing right now with what just came before. And so you can change people's expectations and perception of a product depending on what you show them first. And that's why I will always show people the most expensive products first. Because let's just say, hypothetically, someone comes to you and they are prepared to pay $100. That's in their mind, they're like, all right, I want to spend $100 today. If you show them the LumiSpa, let's just say, and it's a few $100s, well, that seems expensive compared to their original perception of what they were prepared to pay. However, if you showed them first the galvanic spa, which is $600+, let's just say the body or the face spa at retail price here in Australia, and then you show them the LumiSpa, which is half that price, sometimes a little less than that, that's going to appear cheap now in comparison to the first thing that they saw. So that's why you always lead with the most expensive thing and work your way down from there. That's how people, when they're selling their courses, they will start with, this is a $20,000 course, and they'll list off all the things that are in it, and they'll say that's $20,000 worth of value. And you sit there and go, whoa, that's really expensive. And they say, but I'm going to do it for $10,000, and I'm going to add this, and I'm going to add this, and I'm going to add this. And suddenly $10,000 doesn't seem so bad, but quite often what they'll do is they'll cut it again and they'll do, but for today only, for those who take action today, I'll do it for $3,099.99. And then you're like, all right, here's my credit card. But originally at the beginning of the day, maybe $100 was expensive for you, and now you're spending $4,000, just like that. It's because of this principle of contrast, and they understand it and they use it to their advantage, so you should use it to your advantage, or at least be aware of it when you're out there in the marketplace. The final one is likability, and this will come as no surprise to anyone that it's really powerful if someone likes you. If you have a friendship, if you have a relationship in place, and then let's say you're up for a job promotion, despite what everyone else is saying that they would do, despite people saying, I'm not biased in that way, no, I would do it on the candidate who is best fit for the job, time and time again, it has been proven that we are incredibly biased towards those that we like and get along with, and we see the best in those people. So make sure you're aware of that. That is why I really encourage you to go out there and make compliments a just a natural part of your day. You need to be a compliment giver in all situations. And this isn't something that's forced, it's just something that quite often we restrain within ourselves and control, and we don't say what we think. Quite often we'll look at someone and we'll go, oh my God, they're amazing. I mean, look how good their hair looks. Look at that posture. Look at this, that. But we keep it inside ourselves for some weird reason. That is solid gold, not just for the person that is receiving that blessing of a compliment, but it's also solid gold for you because there's a sense of it engages reciprocity, it engages likability there. There's so many different things at play there that are beneficial for both parties. So that is the final principle that I'm going to share today. This has gone on long enough. If you like this, please like the video, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, all of the above. And if you are looking for someone to partner with to build a business for yourself, then by all means, reach out, connect, because I am looking for great business partners around the world to help expand this incredible business. My name is Kurt Provost, your guide to all things new skin. I'll see you in the next video.